I'm Dylan. I'm here with John, and we're going to talk about the black powder game that we played last night in Tabletop Simulator, trying a different battle report format where we are going to watch the video together that I took of our game at about 10 times speed and comment as we go, letting you know our intimate thoughts on what was going on there. So let's get to it. I'm going to hit the play button and we'll just see. Again, we'll see how this goes. Starts out a little slow here. I think I was telling you about 1813 and whatnot at this point. Here we are moving all around.
Yes, every game begins with a bit of a history lesson and a bit of a tactics and technology primer for what's going on at this particular stage of civilization.
Exactly. I'm just going to pause right here because we're getting to the we were getting into the Austrian army. All right. Again, this is quite an experiment here. I kind of need a video player that would allow me to go to specific time points easier, maybe.
It might be good to do a video where it's just vignettes between stable static images.
Well, that's what I was doing.
How that would work out.
Yeah, that's kind of that would be like a hybrid of what I was doing before. So my earlier battle reports, I had vignettes or little bits of video that I was grabbing. But what I found with that is that it's actually quite time consuming to kind of come up, I would do a voiceover, then I would come up with a shot list essentially of like, well, this is, I want to get these segments from the game to support my audio. But that was extremely time consuming to do. I mean, the screenshot thing, sort of like a slideshow, that might work too. That's almost like the comic format battle reports that I used to do for our Meg games.
Yes.
And those worked out pretty well. It was really like those comic battle reports that made me want to try this with video, because it's much the same thing. It's like, how do I tell a story about the battle in some sort of format, right? And the comic format I think lent itself well to that, because I like the idea of having the story of the battle, but I don't feel this isn't anything negative towards the people who do record all the detail. I know a lot of people like that, but there's this, the Arnold Rimmer style battle report. I don't know if you remember Red Dwarf, right? But there's an episode of that where Arnold Rimmer is describing from his Risk campaign book, then I rolled a 3 and a 4 and my opponent rolled a 5 and a 6.
Anyway, to cut a long story short, I threw a 5 and a 4, which beat his 3 and a 2, another double 6, followed by a double 4 and a double 5. After he'd thrown a 3 and a 2, I threw a 6 and a 3.
But then I rolled a 6 and a 4 and he rolled a 2 and a 3, right? And that that level of detail maybe doesn't tell the story the way, as efficiently as you could, let's say. So my battle report philosophy, I guess. Here we have the Austrian army. The Austrian army has 2 brigades, one big infantry brigade with the, large line infantry battalions that the Austrians have. We have a Grinzer battalion there in the back in those brown shirts and blue pants. And we also have a cavalry brigade, which is composed of 3, what are they? Regiments. I think they're regiments of cuirassiers. So, super heavy cavalry for the Austrians.
Dylan, side question.
Yes,
what makes them super heavy at this point? Because they're not wearing armor. Is it just they're on heavier horses?
But they are.
What makes heavy cavalry?
Yeah. So one, it is the horses. They are on these gigantic, think almost Clydesdale size horses, right? So that's one aspect of it. So they're, they're bigger, they're up higher than other cavalry and everybody else, right? They're also big dudes, right? These are recruited from people who are 6 feet tall. Just imagine some of our largest friends, like Big Aaron, the largest man, on the biggest horse you've ever seen. That's kind of what these guys are. And they are wearing armor. So they're called cuirassiers because they're wearing a cuirass, right? A chest plate, and typically, front and back chest plate armor on top of them. And that gives them protection in, melee fights with other guys on horses, just general protection. Even at long range, they found some of these archaeologically right, that have musket balls lodged in them, but that didn't penetrate. So I'm guessing at long range, at least, I mean, at short range, I don't think it's going to stop a musket ball, but at long range, it might even protect you against musket fire.
Okay. All right. That's good to know.
Yep. So that's cuirassiers in a nutshell. Okay. So I'm going to hit the play button here. Let's see. Zooming over. I'll pause again. Here we are at the French side. So on the French, we have 3 brigades. Each infantry brigade has 3 battalions, and one of the infantry brigades has a unit of light troops, I guess, Leger there. And they have a few more special rules. They can do a little skirmish formation, right? Over on the cavalry side for the French, we have basically a light cavalry brigade with a unit of hussars and 2 units of lancers. All right, we're explaining some more of the special rules I think that the Austrians have there. Just pause for a minute and add something that I took these lists or made these lists from the, what is it called? Clash of Eagles Black Powder Supplement, which is 1812, right? It's really about the Russian campaign. But I wanted to have Austrians, right? So we're kind of saying this is 1813, although it's mostly taken as far as like the special rules and whatnot from there. Also didn't use all of the special rules. There's some other stuff in there about different columns. There's a special Austrian formation called, I think, Battalion in Mass or something like that, which we didn't use for this game. Again, we're kind of new to Black Powder in the period, so just try not to overcomplicate things too much for us and not spend too much time with our nose, especially my nose, in a rule book.
You're always our game master extraordinaire, and none of us know the rules to any of these games, and so we're constantly asking Dylan, how many dice do I roll? What do I need?
There you go. Someone has
what happens when my cannon shoots at this building?
Indeed. All right, we've got some deployment going on here. And at this point, so did you guys have a plan for your deployment?
No, we should mention that I had a co-general for the first 2/3 of the game, Mark, and he and I were not particularly tactically intertwined. It was more like the infantry will be on this side of the board and the cavalry will be on this side of the board.
Right.
And I don't know if Mark has a tactician's mind, but I typically do not, especially when it comes to deployment. So I usually just line up on the opposite side of the equivalent opposing force. So that was my strategy.
Right. So I'm getting my guys deployed here, and I will maybe pause while we have this this picture here. I'll talk about my plan. So embarrassingly, I often do have a grand, elaborate plan during deployment, but I'm not sure it makes a difference, right? So my plan, knowing that I could not, we'll let this continue a little bit, but knowing that I could not defeat those cuirassiers over there with the cavalry that I had, my plan was to essentially bait them with these lancers over here and then use the woods between the infantry and my cavalry, use those woods as kind of an anchor while I engaged the infantry. And my plan was to hopefully defeat the infantry and win the game that way. Since everybody was like cavalry, they have a special rule in Black Powder, which means they can kind of operate further away from each other. So my plan was to have the hussars over here just harass Mark's infantry and hopefully slow them down, force them on the side there to form a square or something, disconnect them from the rest of his line so that my infantry could converge and break the brigade eventually.
Well, for what it's worth, your plan worked flawlessly. You did bait the heavy cavalry, and the guys in the woods did take pot shots at them the whole time.
Yes.
So that part of it worked out great.
In a way, I guess, but especially in Black Powder with the random aspect of command rolls and whatnot, sometimes the more simple plan is the best plan. So as later, a little foreshadowing there. Things, not everything went according to plan. So, but here we're moving up here on our, maybe this is my first turn.
You can see we're making a lot more use of drawing on the map that's something that we have just started really utilizing routinely, and I think it helps speed things up a lot.
Yeah, I'm thinking about maybe having one of those signs. We've gone this many games without anyone drawing a penis on the
No one drew a penis
on the board.
We won't mention
So,
who wasn't playing last night, but there were no
right.
penises drawn.
There you go. So I don't know.
It's a game of gentlemen, right? I mean,
exactly.
You remind
yes.
us of that quite frequently.
It's a victory for civilized behavior every game where nothing like that happens on the board. Well, yeah. All right, we're moving up here. See the Grenzers took some time getting out of the wheat field there. I think didn't they maybe failed some command rolls or something. I just remember that they hung out there for a little bit. Cavalry's coming up, and Mark is doing kind of this slow. He didn't go for the big moves. He was just, I'm going to move everybody up to the edge of the trees. We're just going to go for one move and continue from there. But he did make all of those command rolls. I was hoping with those Austrian special rules for not being able to do brigade orders, that it would be more difficult for him to get his guys up there, and that maybe they would come up piecemeal. And again, so I could defeat them in detail, as you say, but it did not work out that way.
No, I have no doubt that if you looked at just the command rolls in this game, they would have easily been above average. And we've seen many more failures and many more botches in previous games with the command rolls. Just, we didn't see nearly as many this.
Definitely true. I think we've had games, I think, where maybe the first 3 turns, there was almost no movement because of botched command rolls. I guess it can happen. Checking some rolls there. Oh, okay. So this is spectacular. So this is where things really start to unravel for me, I think. The mission for these guys was to advance up the road and occupy the windmill, right? Seems simple. Well, I blundered on my second turn. They had gotten all the way up to the windmill. They were like just at the door of the windmill, ready to go in there. The windmill, we counted that as a building you could occupy and get a little cover bonus and a safe bonus and whatnot. But instead of occupying the windmill, they plundered and decided, hey, did you say occupy the windmill or just run around in a column over to this side behind these other guys? And well, that's what they did. So now this is where my plan, the beginning of my plan is kind of unraveling over on this side of the board, at least, I guess. The cavalry plan, as you said, John, did make sense, right? That was executed okay, or went okay. But that cavalry plan, back to like the simple plans, right? So the cavalry plan, bump my microphone there, but the cavalry plan, all I had to do was sit there. It was really, the plan was done pretty much at deployment. It didn't rely on anybody else, anything happening. You were the one who had to come and move to me, so obviously the infantry had to move up there. So the more simple part of the plan, I guess, was better. Starting to do some shooting here.
This seems to happen to you. I swear it's happened 3 games in a row, if I'm not mistaken, where you start off closer to the building than the opposing force, but the opposing force inevitably garrisons the building before you can get into it. I don't know why that keeps happening.
That absolutely happens. And I even feel guilty. I set up the boards before having, or, I think, well, it's so unfair that the building is closer to my side of the table, right? But that doesn't matter, right? It might only be, 2 moves away from my starting position, but somehow I still never seem to be able to get into the building first.
Well, this game is definitely a lot about managing failed command rolls. So
yes,
you just have to know that it's coming and be ready. So it was good that Mark, I think one of the things that really helped our side on the infantry side of the battle was that Mark did not have any of his infantry regiments hanging out. They all advanced together, stayed together. We're always shooting all together.
Yes. Yep.
So that really worked out.
Absolutely true. Definitely more organized, which is not how the Austrians were supposed to be. Oh, there was I just saw this was the other part that messed me up here. So even with those guys running away, I thought, all right, are not running away, but just blundering and moving oddly over to the side there. I thought, well, my hussars will still be able to do their job, but they've been shot at a little bit. They only had casualties, but they got disordered, and that essentially stopped them from doing anything for a turn. And they just wouldn't do anything really for the rest of the game. If I'd been able to use them to force some guys up into a square over there, that could have changed things for me in this infantry battle, because if I had squared up one of those infantry battalions, I think I would have had much better odds in the shooting battle.
Yeah, that cavalry unit really wasn't able to do much, because here they're stuck disordered, and then later they're going to be stuck shaken and not able to charge. And between those two turns, they just never were able to accomplish much, which freed up an entire regiment from Mark, or entire battalion from Mark to just shoot at things unimpeded.
All right, I think we're doing some shooting at your cavalry here. Yeah, so we have a disorder and some casualties on these guys. That was all according to plan, right? To scare off those Mino cuirassiers. I'm not sure if we missed the first melee too, but the Lancers did okay in the first melee they had with the cuirassiers, right? They rolled pretty well.
Yeah, you actually repelled me.
I think even won the combat.
Even with my die 3 additional wounds in determining who repels who, I still was repelled.
Right.
Because those Lancers are not completely inferior to the cuirassiers in straight who's going to do how many wounds to who. Each of us had a slightly different dynamic for the dice we were rolling, but it kind of ended up being vaguely close. But then when it came time to determine who repels who, it was a distinct advantage.
Exactly. The cuirassiers have a few more dice, I think at 9 dice, and the Lancers have 7 dice, but the Lancers have obviously the Lance special rule, so they're reducing your save essentially.
Oh, that's interesting. I should ask. So the Lancers aren't Lancers in the sense that it sounds like a really cool thing to call something. They're Lancers in the sense that they're carrying lances.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. They are physically carrying lances. And it's a type of cavalry that persisted, at least in European armies, all the way to World War One. There are pictures of Lancers with gas masks in World War One. I don't know if maybe in the early days of the war, someone might have been dumb enough to try a lance charge or a cavalry charge in World War One with lances, but boy, that would definitely not be even worse. The American Civil War, right? Super bad idea with Maxim guns and whatnot. But yeah, the Lancers continued. Heck, World War II, the famous Polish Lancers, they were out there also. Although again, I don't know if that's really something that I think it was a myth that the Polish Lancers attempted to charge German tanks, right, with their lances. I think that kind of an urban legend there, but I don't think that that's factual. But the unit existed and persisted. The British used lances a lot against, in their colonial battles against other colonial opponents who were more melee focused, right? More melee focused. So it was maybe had a reason later in the 19th century, if you were British, to still be running around with lances. All right, here I am backing up. So at this point, yeah, I'm definitely losing. I know it's unlikely that I'm going to win. My hope here is that from this position, I'll be able to get at least these 2 units firing on Mark's 1 unit that is in the trees here. Anytime you can get that 2-on-1, situation, that is how you win black powder often. So I still have a little bit of hope, but it's a big long shot. Just pulled the Hussars back because at this point they're just a liability, right? They're just no reason for them to be in harm's way. And I don't know, the light infantry there with all their skirmishy stuff.
You're like repositioning them to get the best chance of having a shot at my cavalry.
Actually, I think I'm reorganized into shoot at, well, am I shooting at I don't remember at this point if I was shooting at the cavalry or if I'm getting ready to shoot the Grenzers. I might be shooting at the Grenzers, actually.
This was around about the time where I remember being very despondent for my chances of accomplishing anything with the cavalry.
Mm-hmm.
Having been repulsed, having been disorganized, I was starting to feel like the cavalry weren't going to be able to accomplish much. I was wrong, and you reminding me that a disorderly retreat is the discretion is the better part of valor. And in this case, it was absolutely true. Backing off, reorganizing, sending up a fresh unit that wasn't wounded or wasn't disorganized really made the complete difference on the side of the board. And that's something that's a little tactically above my pay grade. I wouldn't have thought of that on my own.
Right.
Right. The benefit of that.
Yeah. It definitely doesn't make sense to just stand there and get shot up, right? If you're disordered and shaken and whatnot, just, disorderly retreat, it kind of sucks because obviously you can't take the disorder off. You're going to be out of commission for at least a turn, but it's better to be ineffective than it is to be dead, essentially, and contributing to the breaking of the brigade, right? So that was the best thing to do there. Oh, and here we go. I think that things are about to go poorly for those Lancers. I don't think they survive another.
Yeah, here charge. I'm only sending up one so that I can avoid being shot at by the guys in the trees, because I essentially was at their mercy. Couldn't really do anything about them. And then also I was still having trouble getting more than one unit in position at a time.
Yep. Now, obviously some break tests here when I'm looking at that page on the quick reference guide. And yep, here we go. There's the first unit of Lancers off the board. Mark continues his relentless good die rolling over there. I think if he's still, actually at this point, Mark had left you. I see that his name isn't up there. So you're carrying the burden of rolling all those 5s and 6s and whatnot during shooting on your own.
It was fun to pick up his Austrians with 4 stamina and 4 dice of shooting. It was a fun.
Yeah, I wondered how those would,
someone's rifle or something.
Yeah. I wondered how that would go. I wondered how different they would be, those big units. I wondered if they'd be unwieldy or if they would be super effective. They're actually super effective. Now, historically, I think the Austrians were unwieldy, right? They had kind of command and control problems and usually kind of blundered around, and that's how Napoleon often defeated them. But at least in this particular black powder game, they were tough, right? Just that extra point of stamina, the large units, 4 dice. I was never able to gang up on them the way I thought I'd be able to. I thought since they were just so wide and like the frontage of them, I might be able to get more situations where I get 2 units on 1, but again, didn't work out that way.
I recall that the Austrians had a few command rules that were unique to them, but nothing that seemed so onerous. They weren't able to issue brigade orders or something like that.
It's a -1 on brigade orders, and they can also, but they can do this regimental order where they can, order things in the same regiment, usually like 2 battalions instead of the whole brigade.
And like we said earlier, the command roles were going so well in this game that for whatever reason, the detriment for the Austrians didn't show up because everyone was rolling so well when they rolled command rolls for whatever reason.
Exactly. On your side.
Perhaps if the Austrians blundered on an 11 or a 12, you might get a more spiky feeling commanding them or something like that.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Yeah.
But I'm not sure how bad they should be. Maybe that would be too bad.
Yep. Exactly. All right. So at this point, I think we missed but if we look over on this side of the board, we can see that there are no longer any Lancers there. And also the Hussars are gone. So the cavalry brigade, one cavalry brigade is broken. At this point, those, they just couldn't stand up to repeated fights with those cuirassiers. You can get lucky once or twice, but Can't be lucky every time. So we have a unit of cuirassier that's now over here on, I think they ran down from this hill
Yes.
over here, and now actually they've already squared up this infantry. I think they I don't know, maybe 2 moves or something for them to charge all the way over here. And yeah,
you had rolled. I charged and you rolled to form a square, and that repulsed me. So nothing happened, but
right,
you are now a square.
exactly. Yeah, well, reduces my firepower, I guess. It's
right
what it's all about. Oh, now I think we're just about to the end, I think, because I see I can't see it from here. I think it's over at this point. I do.
And there was a moment here where the stamina 4 for the Austrians made a difference between one of the regiments being
they might have been,
not.
exactly.
So
I finally got 3 on them, but then it's like, oh no, wait, you have to have 4 because they're large units. But here, a little blurry, but I believe that is a number 7 on this casualty counter, and it's pretty difficult to survive that. So with that, now my infantry brigade here is broken, and we are done. Just looking if we had any other final thoughts on this. So I will confess that I had a bait and switch plan all along with this, right? My plan was to bait with the American Civil War in black powder and then switch to Napoleonics, right? Because I know that Napoleonics, it's a little less, it's just not something that we're taught as much about, right? So like, unless you really get into the military history stuff, I don't know, right? Like you didn't know.
That's absolutely
weren't
true.
That familiar with the period, right?
In high school and middle school, we learn precious little about these hundreds of years of European wars. So we learn about particular people, Napoleon, of course, but I feel like it skips from the War of the Roses to Napoleon and the American War for Independence, and then it skips to the Civil War. It's like there's very little attention paid to these periods of immense technology transition from lack of gunpowder to gunpowder, or whatever you would consider like post-Civil War industrialized gunpowder, let's call it that. So yeah, I'm agreeing with you, and I think I'm going to make it a benevolent move on your part to start us with the Civil War period, because there's so much less dynamic range in the Civil War games we were playing. It was like you had some infantry, you had some cannons, and you had some cavalry, and there was very little difference between all of them. And that got us started so that when we got to here, where each unit's got a little bit different of a rule, and we understood all the rules. And so when you say this is a reliable unit, it gets +1 command, you know what you can do with that +1, the chances you might take with that +1. So I think it was a good way to start with something that had a little bit less range, and after 3 or 4 games we're ready for something that has a little more range. I wouldn't mind trying out some Napoleonics with cannons to see what we can do with that.
Oh yeah, definitely. We'll definitely switch it up every time, get some more different units. There are a lot of, and that's the thing, the Napoleonic period. That's why I think it is for me at least, a more fun. I mean, people are into different periods for different reasons, right? But from a purely game perspective, the Napoleonic Wars just offer you all that variety that the American Civil War doesn't have. But as you said, for that same reason, the American Civil War is a great starting place kind of for the horse and musket period game-wise, because it is more simple. Heck, even from a painting perspective, if you're playing with actual miniatures, one of the first horse and musket army I ever painted back in the 1990s was a Union army for the American Civil War. And that was because all I had to do was paint the pants light blue and paint the jackets dark blue. And I was pretty much done at that point, right? Whereas the Napoleonic Wars, well, you do have to do some research to get those uniforms correct. There's a lot of detail to it about facing colors and what color are their stocks, the little things that go around like their necks, right? And the collars and the lace on the collars and the backpack, and then the straps on the backpack, and it goes on and on to the detail, which is part of what makes it cool, right? From kind of an artistry miniatures perspective, right? That's actually, I see it as an advantage now, whereas the 16 or 17-year-old me saw that as impossibly complicated, right? So anyway, yeah. So definitely the Civil War is a great place to start with the black powder game, or any kind of horse and musket sort of war gaming, I don't know, thing, right? It's a good introduction to the period, even though it's kind of in the middle or the latter half of the period. Interesting stuff. And yeah, like you said, in our high school history books, there are a few pages on Napoleonic Wars maybe, but not a heck of a lot of detail there. It's kind of to be expected. You're not going to get a lot of military history out of that sort of survey sort of history, especially at the high school level. You're just not. You don't have time to go into that much detail with these things. And we focus on our own history, like I'm sure any country, their education system is going to be the same, probably a lot about how their country was founded and so forth. Anyway, it's still fascinating. It's still an important period, right? As far as how things play out for Europe, and ultimately, global impacts from this sort of stuff, all part of the greater England-France sort of conflict, right? At that global level. I had another question for you about this game, Black Powder, maybe versus some of the other games we've tried in Tabletop Simulator. I don't know. You and I played a number of games of Meg, right? Mortem et Gloriam and Ancients. So I don't know, like the period, both the period and the rule set, right? So I don't know, thoughts on that maybe, or how the two compare.
I think after we've played a few games of Black Powder, we've been able to play a game in 3 hours, which I think is, for me, important. I prefer to be able to play and finish a game, even if someone has to concede, but you can wrap it up.
Yep.
It's beneficial. I think even with Meg, even after we had played a few games, we were still struggling a little bit. The card handling in Meg takes time, and you're pondering. I haven't thought about this, so I may not be completely correct in this, but I feel like when you know the currency you're going to have for your command and your movement phase, you spend a little bit more time dilly-dallying because you have a fixed amount of resources to spend on movement that turn, and you want to get as much out of that as you can. And so you're really questioning each movement order. Whereas with Black Powder, you don't know what you're going to get to do. So you kind of just come up with a plan and roll the dice and hope it comes out well for you. But I feel like, at least for me, it makes me a little less time consuming with my movement orders. I kind of just shoot from the hip a little bit more with the movement orders. Not that I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, like not moving people so far up, and they're going to get stuck out there without anyone around them to support them. But I feel like our movement orders are a little bit faster in Black Powder and a little slower in Meg because of the card handling.
Yeah.
And because of having the fixed amount of currency to spend and trying to milk that.
I think that is as much like the mechanics in Tabletop Simulator and the way Black Powder treats movement in general. And I would say that Meg, I don't know, but I would say this, that Black Powder feels like more of a casual game, as to Meg is maybe more competitive and precise. I mean, a lot of Ancients games have that, where the precision of movement is sometimes a little more important. I've said this, I think, in other battle reports and content I've tried to make here, but I think Black Powder works very well in Tabletop Simulator because it's loosey-goosey with the movement, right? And you're kind of moving pretty large distances, and you're kind of shoveling these guys across the table sometimes, and many times you don't even have to measure, because you're like, well, I know these guys can go 24 or 36 inches, and I told them to go up to the woods, so let's just move them up to the woods. You know what I mean? So all of that, from just the mechanical aspect in Tabletop Simulator, makes it go a lot faster. I still like the command and control system in Meg and like Meg overall a lot, but I can see how it's a little slower. We're also keeping things pretty small as far as our black powder games, I guess. I mean, if you look at the supplement material and the little scenarios they have, they're usually a lot bigger, maybe 2 or 3 times the size. But just imagine, 2 or 3 times as many brigades and whatnot as we had here, right? That's a lot, and that would take longer. But you don't have to do that, right? You can do whatever you want. It's black powder is more like a sandbox. It's like, well, you just gotta make up what you want to do and play the game. That's what we've been doing, and I've been keeping it to a kind of a small size, like you said, to keep it as something we can finish on our Saturday night gaming session, and not have to do 2 or 3 or 4 sessions to finish the same game.
Yep. And as far as the shooting phase, I think Warhammer 40K looms large when we're playing black powder. The way the shooting phase works with the saves, it's almost picked up, it seems to me, from Warhammer 40K. I definitely prefer Meg's combat resolution. It's so the dice for combat resolution is great. You roll the dice and that's what happens, and then you're done. It gives you that moment in time where this is what came out of the turn, and you see the roll, you're seeing what's happening, and then you're cheering or groaning depending. And you don't get that with black powder. It's that back and forth, especially when you get into rules like with the cuirassiers adding additional wounds to determine the repelling. There's just a lot of phases to combat resolution, which does it slow us down? I can't say if it actually on the clock slows us down, but it requires a lot of coordination between the 2 players. Like, I rolled this, now you have to save this. And when we were doing the charges, it was like we were both attacking and then both having to save, and so you're rolling a lot of dice and then a fewer number of dice, and it's just quite a lot to deal with. Where it felt like with Meg, it was, I get these dice, you get these dice, we both roll, and that's the outcome, and then you're done. Preferences, but for me, I prefer the black powder's combat resolution.
Right. Well, black powder.
Excuse me, I prefer Meg's combat resolution.
Over black powder. So you kind of like the black powder simplified command and control system, right? Which, of course, black powder is descended from War Master, which is in a way tied to, Warhammer, and written by Rick Priestley, of course, who is the father of Warhammer. Those rules, right? So that whole save thing, I don't know if he has can claim the save, the roll to hit, roll to save mechanic. There could be some rule set from the 1970s or something that first shows up in. You'd have to I don't know, ask a wargaming historian maybe, or a historical wargaming historian. There you go. That's a job for you.
I wonder if you could get a degree in that. You could be a doctor of wargaming history.
I think there might actually be something like, I don't know. I saw some podcast or was it a podcast or was it like one of the Society of Ancients talks? I'm not sure, but there was a talk that I saw. There was a guy, he was working on some kind of PhD in wargaming or something like that. So I don't know. It's probably out there, right?
But another thing to mention about while we're on the bent of comparing Meg and black powder, black powders produces more. Well, I shouldn't say more. Both Meg and black powder have something that a lot of other games I've played don't have, which is moments of great excitement or trepidation when you botch a command roll, or when you succeed at a command roll and then fail the next command roll and realize, oh no, I didn't plan for that. Or in Meg, it's similar when you get
the black cards, right? Yeah.
You just realize,
it's like,
no,
exactly. I can't do anything this turn, right, with this general. Yeah.
that makes the game a lot of fun, I think, especially when you're playing with just a group of people. If every turn just kind of grinds out and it's like, well, I wound this guy and you wound these guys and these guys move, or that only stays fun for so long. But when you get these like big punchy moments of drama where things just go completely off the rails or work out really well for you, those spiky moments of interest really help keep the game going and keep people interested. So I'm really enjoying those aspects of these two game systems. I don't feel like Warhammer 40K or some of these other games that I've played have anything like that. It's much more like chess, whereas like someone who's a master at chess, they might do something that's amazing and blows everyone's mind. But the game itself is very static, vanilla. It's like the same things happen very repetitively, it seems like, when you're playing other games that don't have those moments of great randomness. So anyway, I'm enjoying that aspect of these games.
Yeah, it's always a trade-off, I guess, between the if it can't be too random, or you might as well just flip a coin, right? But I agree that I don't know, just the way these games that we're talking about, Meg and Black Powder, just games that have, what I like is games that have something that represents the command and control friction, right? The fog of war, like something in there that represents that, which obviously like 40K, which we're using as an example, doesn't have that. Not that I haven't played 40K in a number of years, but I really don't think they've added anything like that, right? Made that kind of change to the 40K rules. And 40K is kind of to your point. It's one of the reasons that 40K is boring to me, or was boring to me, or became boring over time. It's that it's one of these things where the game is determined by the army list generation. You know what I mean? Like whoever brought the coolest stuff that is cool this week in your local 40K meta, that is the winner, right? So it's like it's a foregone conclusion often, just that happened before the game was even played. I mean, I don't know, there are aspects of that, like the terrain system. You can have like pre-game stuff that matters to the game, I guess. That's fine, but it shouldn't be the only thing that matters, in the resolution of things. So
yeah, you can see that in the conflicts that have broken out over the latest version of Warhammer 40K, where a lot of the changes to the new rule set are not changes to how the game is played, but are changes to how the army lists are structured and what you can pick and what you have to pick, and little side system points that you get for picking certain things. And it's all meta. One of the benefits of historical wargaming is that you can't have splat packs, because we all know there's a finite number of sides, there's a finite number of unit types that were available for those sides, and it's predetermined because it's past tense.
Exactly. That's what I always say about it. Like the good thing about historical wargaming is that humanity already ruined that intellectual property, right? There's like, you know what I mean? You're not going to release like, you're not going to make up something new and like, oh, well, we've got turbo cuirassiers now. And
psychic
cuirassiers are twice as good as the cuirassiers we released 6 months ago. So now you got to go out and buy these new ones. Like, you don't have that. And in fact, the same, miniatures, you can use the same miniatures and whatnot from rule set to rule set over a period of decades, right? So I don't know, all good things about the historical version of the game. And then I don't know what's a new version of 40K to you, but like, obviously we've been around for a while, but I don't know yeah, I mean, obviously it's been a thing in 40K since I got back into 40K in 5th edition and enjoyed it then for a bit, but then I don't know, it was all downhill for me anyway. But I don't know, we shouldn't, who knows what hatred will get from
oh yeah, cut all of us grieving about 40K, because that's
might have to
wildly unpopular.
Might have to delete all the 40K complaining
references
and ripping on non-historical games. I mean, I still play non-historical games, but I don't know, just in a historical mood the last year or two, right? Last couple of years, maybe. So yeah, all good stuff.
Well, I think one of the benefits of the historical gaming too with tabletop is that you can get, without paying great sums of money or doing anything surreptitious, you can get the units in Tabletop Simulator. I doubt that you can just import Warhammer 40K miniatures into Tabletop Simulator. I guess you could scan them in.
Oh, you can.
About your scanning business, but
oh yeah, no, there are tons of 40K miniatures out there. People even made so if you go to the 40K website, right, they have some panoramic views of the miniatures where you can hit a little video and it'll play the miniature turning around like on a turntable. You can use that to make a 3D copy of the miniature in tabletop. You know, you can do the photogrammetry process with like an animated GIF and turn it into a 3D thing. It's crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And people have done that, but you're always, obviously, you know, the GW lawyers will come for that eventually. You know,
right.
They're not going to let
I
that.
don't have time for that. I mean, so.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And, you know, that's another, I don't know, history is more open from an intellectual property perspective. You can't copyright Napoleonic uniforms. I guess you can draw a picture of them and copyright that, but you know, you get the idea, right? It's just not the same. Yeah, I guess that's about it. I guess maybe say goodbye, John.
Looking forward to the next game. More cannons.
Yes, more cannons next time. All right. In the next game, I plan to introduce more of the special rules from the Clash of Eagles supplement, which should add additional Napoleonic goodness. Heck, maybe I'll even get my French infantry into attack columns and try to be more Frenchy with them. I assure you, we have no delusions of YouTube grandeur. However, if you hit the like or subscribe button, it might inspire us to make another one of these battle reports. So thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next one of these.